Now, over the years, the two sessions have continued to draw global interest. Among the thousands of delegates are diplomats and representatives from different countries around the world. CGTN's Kiyo spoke to some of them about their views and expectations on this year's meeting.
It's a once-in-a-year meeting meant to outline China's economic, social, political and even environmental goals. An event that in recent years has attracted increasing global attention. On Monday, dozens of diplomats and foreign observers were among the thousands who trooped the Great Hall of the People for China's annual two sessions.
The two sessions are very important, not only for the Chinese people, but also for Africa. This is a learning process for us on the systems, the way they work.
We are all hoping to hear a lot from what China is thinking internally and also in foreign policy.
Policies against poverty, the new development areas, ecological development, and how China is opening up to international trade and investment so that we can continue expanding also our bilateral relations.
This year's meeting is the first of the 13th National People's Congress. It's also an election year. Delegates will elect state leaders and the upper echelons of government for the coming 5 years. Still, for many here, the focus is on the work report by Premier Lee.
I'm very pleased to see the drive to include environment in the economic development agenda. This is something that we are very keen about, working in Bamboo and Rattan.
Well, with China's role in the global arena increasingly evolving, the NPC's two-week meeting may only be symbolic, but it also offers a glimpse into the path that the world's second biggest economy may be charting. Kiyo, CGTN, Beijing, China.
Well, let's get you more perspective now on the two sessions and how it all relates to Africa. I'm joined live from Cairo by Ambassador Ahmed Haggag. He's Egypt's former Assistant Foreign Minister for African Affairs. Ambassador, pleasure to have you with us. Ambassador, just tell us in your view, how important are China's two sessions when it comes to China's policies and decisions on Africa?
I think the two sessions are very important, not only for the Chinese people, but for almost all the world, especially in Africa. The decision which will be undertaken during these sessions will have a mark on China's policy and the policies of many African countries. I hope Africa will listen how China will grow next year by 6.5%. and how it reduced the budget deficit to 2.5%, and how they are going to grow exports and imports at the same time. So there are many lessons which Africa will benefit, and I hope the Chinese authorities will try to invite as many African leaders and the responsible people to know how the Chinese experiment is being implemented in practice and how could they use some parts of this policy in their countries.
And looking a little more specifically at Egypt, we know, of course, that Egypt is set to play an important role, Ambassador, in China's Belt and Road Initiative. But can we expect any extra pledges from China when it comes to infrastructure in Egypt?
I don't want to boast, but I think Egypt was the first country in Africa and the Middle East to recognize the People's Republic of China in '56, which immediately the United States applied sanctions on Egypt at that time. But the relation between Egypt and China are very prosperous. We have a lot of Chinese firms working in Egypt, and also, by the way, tourism, both sides are increasing. Many Egyptians would like to go to work in China, small enterprises or medium enterprises, and also in order to visit tourist destination. We have a lot of Chinese tourists now coming to Egypt, Upper Egypt and Cairo. But Chinese are going to invest in major projects. One of the major things is to build a railroad between the new administrative capital and different Egyptian cities, which will facilitate the transfer and the communication between different parts in Egypt. Our trade relation, of course, it is in favor of China, but we are increasing our exports likewise.
And Ambassador, we've seen over the years...
There is a lot of consultation between the leadership of China.
Apologies, Ambassador. Just moving to the next point quickly.
Yes, please.
We know, of course, that over the past few years, we've seen China play an increasingly important role when it comes to peacekeeping in Africa and the fight against terrorism. How critical is China's assistance on that?
I think in Egypt and China we have likewise policy against terrorism, which is in some part of northeastern part of Sinai. And the Chinese peacekeeping in Africa makes China the only permanent representative of the 5 countries in the Security Council which have peacekeeping operation in Africa. I remember South Sudan, in Darfur, and other parts of Africa. And what characterizes Chinese peacekeepers that they are not confined to the strictly normal duties of peacekeepers, but they are engaging in some development project to the communities they live around, road building, bridge building, and so on, hospitals and clinics. So they are making a social impact in the regions they are working in. And peacekeeping is becoming now more important. Also, Egyptian peacekeepers are working side by side with some Chinese peacekeepers. And in relation with this, many people in the West try to indicate that China is establishing a military base in Djibouti. I tell them this is a base is no different from other bases which the Western countries have in Djibouti, and they are used to quell pirates in this area, which affects the maritime movements coming to Egypt, but through Suez Canal, by the way. So we salute the efforts of the Chinese peacekeeping, and we hope that they will continue in spite of some of the concerns by Western countries.
Ambassador, thank you so much for your insights. Ambassador Ahmed Haggag joining us there live from Cairo, Egypt.